Madhya Lila chapter 19. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught Srila Rupa Goswami the ultimate limit of the truth about Lord Krishna, the truth about devotional service, and the truth about transcendental mellows culminating in conjugal love between Radha and Krishna. Finally, he told Rupa Goswami about the ultimate conclusions of Srimad Bhagavatam. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu taught Rupa Goswami all the conclusions he heard from Ramananda Roy and duly empowered him so that he could understand them. By entering, these are all verses, not yet purport. By entering the heart of Rupa Goswami, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu empowered him to ascertain properly the conclusions of all truths. He made him an experienced devotee whose decisions correctly agreed with the verdicts of the disciplic succession. Thus, Sri Rupa Goswami was personally empowered by Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we've heard it now 3 times. We're going to hear it some more times. He was highly charged personality. Indeed, Srila Rupa Goswami, whose dear friend was Swarup Damodar, we heard this phrase already, right? From Kavi Karnapur, whose dear friend was Swarup Damodar, was the exact replica of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and he was very, very dear to the Lord, and so forth. So, powerful recipient of Lord Chaitanya's mercy, his teachings, his realization, his ability to express it and to write it. While they were in Prayag, that's Rupa and his brother Anupam and Lord Chaitanya, at the same time, Srila Vallabhacharya happened to be there simultaneously. And he invited Lord Chaitanya to come with him to have lunch at his home. Lord Chaitanya came, accompanying with him was Rupa and Anupam. And he wanted them to sit with everybody, Vallabhacharya, but they wouldn't. They sat at a distance. And they said, humility, we're lowly untouchables. You should not contaminate yourself by touching us. Then they sat down at a certain distance. And then Lord Chaitanya made a comment. They think of themselves in this way, so let them be. He didn't say that, yes, it's a fact they're lowly and untouchable. He just supported their mood, because their mood was very, very strong in the humility department. And after those 10 days, Lord Chaitanya wanted to continue his journey back to Puri, so he got in a boat ready to leave. And look at Rupa Goswami, he's smashing his head with his hand. He wants to go with Lord Chaitanya. And Lord Chaitanya told him, no, your duty is to carry out my order. Later you can go from Vrindavan to Jagannath Puri through Bengal. There you will meet me again. So his instruction was, I've taught you, go to Vrindavan and begin your writing. He instructed him to write Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu according to the teachings he had given. And so he fainted, seeing Lord Chaitanya depart. And he then did go to Vrindavan for a whole month. And then that's all he could take. And then he started to travel overland through Bengal on his way to Jagannath Puri. His brother Anupam was with him, and he died. We're going to hear tomorrow how that struck his son, Jiva Goswami, because Jiva Goswami is quite young when this happened. And then he eventually made his way to Jagannath Puri. So when he reached, on his way to Jagannath Puri, in his mind he was composing a drama. I mean, composers sometimes do that. Writers, I guess, sometimes do that. He was doing that. The flow of what the drama would be. And in the course of his travel, he passed through a place in Orissa known as Satyabhamapur. Have you heard of that place? Satyabhamapur. We visited there. It's a nice place. Very simple place. There's kind of like a path. At that time, now it's a road, but then just like a path where pilgrims that were traveling from north to south, from Calcutta to Puri, would travel. It was on that path. And Satyabhamapur is just off that path a little bit. And so he spent the night at that place. And in the evening, when he was resting, he had a dream. And in his dream, Satyabhama appeared and instructed him, don't write one drama, write two. One drama should be Krishna in Vrindavan, and the other is Krishna after he leaves Vrindavan. So he took it as an instruction. And so he began composing two dramas, Krishna in Vrindavan and Krishna after he departs Vrindavan. And he didn't say anything to anybody, but when he reached Puri, he, being very humble, he, like Haridas, wouldn't enter the temple, so he stayed with Haridas, some distance from the temple. And Lord Chaitanya would visit both of them every day and bring prasad of Lord Jagannath to them every day. And one day, Lord Chaitanya instructed Rupa. He said, well, I understand you're writing a drama. It should be two dramas. Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, Krishna's pastimes out of Vrindavan. So Rupa Goswami took it as not just confirmation, but Lord Chaitanya's omniscient. And so he composed these two. There's Lalita Madhava, is Krishna's departing Vrindavan, and it's very amazing. And Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan is Vidagdha Madhava. After some time, Lord Chaitanya visiting with Rupa and Haridas said, I would like Ramananda Roy and some of the other senior Vaishnavas to hear verses from your dramas. Tomorrow will come. So sure enough, he came. And when he came, it was Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya and Sarup Damodar and Ramananda Roy, and, Jagatananda, and a whole group of very, very elevated Vaishnavas. So they all sat down, and Rupa Goswami sat at a distance. And Ramananda Roy said, come sit with us. We want to hear this drama from you. And his same message, I'm fallen, I'm untouchable, I can't come near you. I'm unfit to be near you. They're honoring his writing, but he's feeling this profound humility. It's just part of his personality, Rupa Goswami. And as they were hearing the verses, Ramananda Roy, who is highly proficient, highly knowledgeable in drama, and the science of it, and the way by which drama stimulates transcendental emotion, he was astounded. And one of those celebrated verses, it's from Vidagdha Madhava. Remember, Vidagdha Madhava is Krishna in Vrindavan. So there's some introductory verses he wanted to hear. There's certain nomenclature for the introductory verses. So he recited this verse about the holy name. One of my favorite verses. I do not know how much nectar the two syllables Krishna have produced. Of course, it was in Sanskrit. When the holy name of Krishna is chanted, it appears to dance within the mouth. We then desire many, many mouths. When that name enters the holes of the ears, we desire many millions of ears. And when the holy name dances in the courtyard of the heart, it conquers the activities of the mind, and therefore all the senses become inert. This is a meditation on mantra meditation. I'm just sharing something with you. It's something that I regularly, not always, but there was a period of time it was every day. A significant part of my japa was being guided by this meditation. It's 4 parts: the glories of the name, the speaking part of the body that is used to make the sound, the receiving part of the body that is to hear the sound, and then the sound goes to the heart. So you've heard this, you chant from your heart. What does that mean? This tells you what it means. And when you chant from the heart, it enters into the courtyard of the heart. The distracted mind stops being distracted. The mind becomes conquered or stunned. Sometimes it's translated. And when the mind is stunned, the senses become inert. And you're where you want to be when you're chanting. It's a nice, in a poem or in a one stanza, it's a meditation on mantra meditation. It's very powerful. And at the end, there's this really nice section where Ramananda Roy was appreciating what he just heard and was indicating to him, surely you have empowered him, because who could write like this unless he was empowered? Lord Chaitanya confirmed, yes, I've empowered him. I gave him all of my potency and all my wisdom to realize everything and to write it to everyone. And that he would be able to spread it all over. That was his intention. And his intention means its effect. And Rupa Goswami served that function while continuing in his mood of humility. He didn't become proud or anything. He's always fixed in this transcendental state. It's described in Chaitanya Charitamrita for the whole duration that he was there. Rupa was there. Lord Chaitanya brought Mahaprasad every day, or had it sent by Govinda to he and Haridas. When Haridas heard this exchange about, the Lita Madhava and Vidagdha Madhava, and everybody left, he just stood by Rupa's side and said, the mercy that you have received from Lord Chaitanya is just astounding. And Rupa Goswami's response was very simple. He said, I have no qualification at all. I'm a very fallen person. But if there's anything that I've been able to do, it's because Lord Chaitanya gave me the ability and the capacity to do. I'm just like a doll. He's just moving me. He saw himself that way, as the instrument of Lord Chaitanya's will. There's an incident that is mentioned 3 times in the course of Chaitanya Charitamrita. One is in the very first chapter of Madhya Lila. The text reads, in ecstasy, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu recited a verse. When dancing in front of Lord Jagannath, almost no one could understand the meaning of that verse. So here's the verse. Somebody asked, what's the verse? That very personality who stole away my heart during my youth, this is Radha to Krishna, or about Krishna, is now again my master. These are the same moonlit nights in the month of Chaitra. The same fragrance of malati flowers is there, and the same sweet breezes are blowing from the Kadamba forest. In our intimate relationship, I am also the same lover, yet my mind is not happy here. I am eager to go back to that place on the bank of the Reva under the Batasi tree. That is my desire. Now it says author unknown. This was a kind of like a love song that people didn't quite understand what Lord Chaitanya was saying or doing, but Rupa Goswami understood what he was doing. Notice the Padyavali text number is 386. Understanding the heart and the mood and the emotion of Lord Chaitanya, he wrote a companion verse of Radharani encouraging Krishna at Kurukshetra to come with them back to Vrindavan. And his verse, Rupa's verse, my dear friend, now I have met my very old and dear friend Krishna on this field of Kurukshetra. I am the same Radharani, and now we are meeting together. It is very pleasant, but still, I would like to go to the bank of the Yamuna beneath the trees of the forest there. I wish to hear the vibration of his sweet flute playing the fifth note within that forest of Vrindavan. No one understood what Lord Chaitanya was saying. Rupa Goswami understood what Lord Chaitanya was saying, his mood and the meaning. So he composed this verse in Sanskrit. He stuck it in the grass roof of his hut, went to do his midday duties. Lord Chaitanya came to see him. At that time, he wasn't there. He saw this leaf sticking in the thatched roof. He pulled it out, read it, and was amazed. And when Rupa Goswami came back, he read it out to him. And later, he took that leaf, showed it to Sarup Damodar, and said, how did he know? How did he know my mind? And Sarup Damodar said, there's only one conclusion I can guess, and that is you empowered him, because otherwise it's not possible to understand your mind. And Lord Chaitanya then confirmed in this same chapter, Madhya Lila chapter 1, I was so pleased with Rupa Goswami that I embraced him and bestowed upon him all necessary potencies for preaching the bhakti cult. Empowered. Here's found later in Antya Lila, same pastime. There's Lord Chaitanya reading the verse. There's Rupa paying his obeisances. And here's Lord Chaitanya confirming, I thereupon also bestowed upon him my transcendental potency. Now you also give him instructions, in particular, instruct him in transcendental mellows. That was a discussion with Sarup Damodar. Sarup Damodar. So Rupa Goswami remained in Puri for 10 months. He was very happy. And then he was instructed to go back to Vrindavan. And he said, Lord Chaitanya said, I will come there again, because he had been there once. And I don't think he went there again, but he said he'll go there again. Later, another reference from Madhya Lila chapter 19. This is the Rupa Shiksha section. Before the creation of this cosmic manifestation, the Lord enlightened the heart of Lord Brahma with the details of the creation and manifested the Vedic knowledge. In exactly the same way, the Lord, being anxious to revive the Vrindavan pastimes of Lord Krishna, impregnated the heart of Rupa Goswami with spiritual potency. By this potency, Srila Rupa Goswami could revive the activities of Krishna in Vrindavan, activities almost lost to memory. In this way, he spread Krishna consciousness throughout the world. There's that painting again you see in the lower right corner. That's Rupa Goswami writing Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, which he was empowered to understand and to write about. Exactly according to Lord Chaitanya's teachings and everything that he had Ramananda Roy say. Ramananda Roy, when he heard these dramas, he commented, everything that you had me say with my mouth that was your teachings and our discussion together, I've heard now in a written form by Rupa Goswami. So I hope you're getting the picture. Lord Chaitanya was giving the essence of Krishna Bhakti. It's particularly Krishna in Vrindavan, because it's a very special kind of bhakti. Braja Bhakti is a very special kind. And he had Ramananda Roy say it, and he had Rupa Goswami write it. And he asked then to have him propagate it, distribute it, which went through Jiva Goswami, who we're going to hear about tomorrow, and then through Jiva Goswami to his students, and then distribute the books. And that's what we're doing in this book distribution marathon. It's the same writings, same transcendental knowledge, made in a very simple form for, Kali Yuga people to understand this very elevated teaching. And it's a great privilege to be able to assist Lord Chaitanya, who was assisted by Rupa Goswami, who was assisted by the other Goswamis in the disciplic succession. These writings here, this is Krishnadas Kaviraj, is just another person in the disciplic succession taking those same teachings and spreading them out in his way through Chaitanya Charitamrita. One of the essential teachings is, by Bhakti Rasa, one's original dormant Krishna consciousness is spontaneously awakened. Meaning, it's dormant, like a seed is dormant, it needs to be sprouted or awakened. It's already there. It's already there. One of my favorite sayings that I heard Prabhupada, I wasn't there, the first time Prabhupada spoke at Tompkins Square Park, kirtan, 2 hours, kirtan, crowds of people. Prabhupada stood up, everyone wondering, what's he going to say, what's he going to say? And he said something so simple. He said, I've not come to teach you something new, I've come to remind you of that which you have forgotten. I mean, really cool. So it's knowledge that's already there, it just needs to be awakened. We've forgotten, it needs to be awakened. We forgot. We need to be reminded. And that's what these teachings are. Transcendental teachings are like that. One of his, Lord Chaitanya's personal servants was named Govinda, and Govinda kept a diary, and here's a little explanation from Govinda's diary about the composition of one of our 4 Bhakti Shastri books. Most of you know what Bhakti Shastri is. There are 4 books. And Prabhupada identified the 4. And so one of those 4 is Nectar of Instruction. Here's a little explanation of how it was composed. Really interesting. We learn from the diary of Govinda, the personal servant of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, that prior to returning to his unmanifest eternal pastimes, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu remained overwhelmed in a highly inflamed mood of separation. At that time, Mahaprabhu's 2 intimate eternal servitors, Sri Swarup Damodar and Sri Ramananda Roy, would try to pacify him by singing verses that were relevant to his mood. We're familiar with this. He'd enter in a mood and they'd recite something from the scripture that would stimulate his love. And one time, Mahaprabhu was sitting with his devotees on the shore of the ocean, hearing Krishna Katha. Seeing the dense grove of trees lining the shore of the ocean and the sand dunes, remembrance of Govardhan Hill and the Jamuna River, with the many beautiful gardens and groves situated on her banks, sprang up inside him. He then began weeping in separation from Krishna. When his excitement subsided and he became peaceful, he instructed the assembled devotees in a soft, sweet voice. Srila Rupa Goswami wrote Sri Upadesh Amrita verses based on these instructions. So if you want to write a book, there's a nice way. Be with Lord Chaitanya and he's in a mood of ecstasy and he gives teachings and you compose it. Here's Srila Prabhupada writing in 111 Bhagavatam purport. Within the past 500 years, many erudite scholars and acharyas like Jiva Goswami, Sanatana Goswami, Vishwanath Chakravarti, Vallabhacharya, and many other distinguished scholars, even after the time of Lord Chaitanya, made elaborate commentaries on the Bhagavatam, and the serious student would do well to attempt to go through them to better relish the transcendental messages. So writing of books was one of his major contributions, obviously. Here's a list found in his biography of 16 principal books. I'll go through them quickly. One of them, the BBT has translated, Lagu Bhagavatamrita. Maybe you've seen it. It's about that thick. It's on one topic. It's the avatars of the Supreme Lord. There's different sections, but it just goes through Canto 1, Chapter 3, the verses that describe the avatars, and he cites the verse and then explains the verse, one after the next, after the next. Then he goes through that list again with other references and so on. It's just on avatars of the Lord. It's very, very comprehensive. Hansa Duta is the next on the list. Hansa Duta is very beautiful. It's a drama where Radharani is looking towards Mathura, and she's feelings of separation from Krishna. And in the river Jamuna, she sees a swan, and she starts having this conversation with the swan about Krishna as a message carrier, the Duta, Hansa Duta. Carry this message to Krishna. So she's expressing her feelings to the swan carrier. That's the book. Stava Mala is a collection of stavas, nice teachings, prayers, etc. Vidagdha Madhava, Lita Madhava we mentioned already. Vidagdha Madhava, Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. Lalita Madhava, Krishna's pastimes upon leaving Vrindavan. Dhanakeli Kamudi is a pastime dealing with taxes. One of Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, taxing the gopis. And Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, of course, it's our nectar of devotion. Ujjvala Nilamani is its companion text. It's a little detail, but it's important. It comes up later. During Rupa Goswami's time, there were many sadhus living in Vrindavan, and many sadhus were very renounced. And those renounced sadhus, many of them did not like. They were averse to Krishna's pastimes with Radha and the gopis unmarried. They were like rebellious. Whatever they said, they didn't like it. So he when he wrote Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, he didn't very much include that in his writing, but he put it in a companion text, the Ujjvala Nilamani, where the Parakiya pastimes of Radha and Krishna are elaborately discussed, and he explains the judiciousness of them. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur wrote an elaborate commentary on that when he was a young man, before he even came to Vrindavan, and expanded on it and further later to support the Parakiya Rasa, citing verses and giving examples, etc. So it was a big deal during their time, and so he was very respectful to sadhus that had a different view. Mathura Mahima is a nice book. It's the glories of Mathura, with details of the places of pastimes in Mathura. Mathura not meaning not just a city, but the whole of Mathura Mandala, which includes Vrindavan. Padyavali, we mentioned already. It's just a collection of verses, some of his favorite verses. Laghu and Brihat Radha Krishna Gonadesh Dipika. It's a really, really detailed description of the associates of Radha and Krishna, the men and the ladies, or the gopis, and of all ages, and what their ages were, what they looked like, what their dress was, who they were married to, when their birthday was, how many years old were they in relation to Radharani, and details and details and details and details and details and details. Amazing. And these others I'm less familiar with. Uddhava Sandesh, of course. Krishna's instructions to Uddhava, expanding on that. Some other dramas and some other writings. And there's other books. Upadeshamrita is one of them. Namastaka is another celebrated. Namastaka, Astakas, glorification of the name. Siddhanta Ratna, etc., etc. Many. Over 100,000 verses. And all with full realization and empowerment from Lord Chaitanya. When we, not so long ago, did parikram around Govardhan Hill, took 6 classes to do it. At the beginning and at the end, there was this recitation of Govardhan Astakam, another one of his writings. And there's mentioned here, Mata Mayura. Mata Mayura is a name for a certain meter. And Mata Mayura means a mad or an intoxicated peacock. So you have seen peacocks walk, they kind of walk tipsy. And one who is intoxicated, the meter sounds like that, Mata Mayura. And he includes that phrase in the first verse. It's very poetic personality. Here's a sample of his handwriting. When Lord Chaitanya saw his handwriting, he said, this is strings of pearls. It's so beautiful. And here's that painting. The story behind the painting, we described it yesterday, but here it is again, because it's a nice pastime. He just had a desire to do something nice for his brother on his birthday. He's sitting there writing with a desire to do something nice for his brother on his birthday. And down the path comes a village girl. It turns out it was Radharani, bringing ingredients. There's 2 versions. One, she brought the ingredients. Another version is she actually brought the sweet rice. And it was she gave it to Rupa to give to her brother for his birthday. So when he gave it to Sanatan Goswami, he was in ecstasy tasting it. And why is it tasting like this? Why am I experiencing this ecstasy? So he asked some questions about, how did you receive all these ingredients? Where'd you get the sweet rice? And he told the story, and then he realized this was Radharani. And I'm taking service from Radharani. This is very bad. But he finished the sweet rice. It's described that when the mood of Rupa Goswami was so intense, spiritual mood, that when he wrote something that was sad, the leaves of the Kadamba tree would fall to the ground. And he wrote something that was very joyful, and the leaves and flowers of the Kadamba tree would immediately come out. His writing was like that. His mood, his personality was like that. He affected even the trees like that. He did a fair amount of his writing in this place called Ter Kadamba. Ter in local language means call out. So at Ter Kadamba, he would climb up the Kadamba tree and call out for the gopis to come join him for rasa dance. Or call out with his flute for the cows to come and go to the Goshal for milking at the end of the day, because Ter Kadamba is not far from Nanda Maharaja's palace. So there's a photograph of a Kadamba tree somewhere. And those are the Kadamba flowers. They look like little balls, and they're very fragrant. And in this Ter Kadamba grove, there's deities of Krishna Balaram. There's a close-up of the deities. And they're in a little altar. It's not a big, it's a very small place. But above the altar, there's a plaque carved and placed above the altar. And here's what the carving says. It's a writing by Raghunath Das Goswami, taken from Danakeli Chintamani. Adadanas Tranadam Tire, Idam Yache Punak Punak, Srimad Rupa, Padamboja, Rajoham, Syam Bhave Bhave, meaning, taking a blade of grass between my teeth, I repeatedly beg that birth after birth I may obtain the dust of Srila Rupa Goswami's lotus feet. He was looked up to by all, including Raghunath Das, who is a most exalted Vaishnava himself. He is the leader, the exemplary personality for the stage of spiritual perfection, Prayojana. And he's looking up to Rupa Goswami. Some of you have been on parikramas with Dinabandhu, and you can count on him reciting this verse. He loves this verse because he loves Rupa Goswami, who loved Vrindavan and loved Ter Kadamba, especially if you go to Ter Kadamba. But even if you don't, he'll say it. There's a second version. Another one of his books is his Mukta Charitam. It has the same beginning, but the ending is Srimad Rupa Padamboja Duli Syam Janma Janmani. It means the same, translates the same. And that's the version that Dinabandhu recites. Here's a photograph of his Samadhi. Rupa Goswami Samadhi is in Vrindavan town by the side of the Radha Damodar temple. And when Srila Prabhupada was preparing to come to the West, seated in one of his little rooms at the Radha Damodar temple, he was feeling, as I mentioned, not qualified, not capable. But Rupa Goswami, he narrated this, not many times, but he narrated it to his disciples. And now it's a celebrated pastime. Rupa Goswami personally came and spoke to him and said, Maharaj, don't worry about anything. Go ahead and travel to the West and preach. Just preach the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the chanting of Hare Krishna, you'll be successful. I guarantee, because I will be right with you all the time. So we're deeply indebted to Rupa Goswami's support, encouragement, empowerment of, as he was empowered, he's empowering Srila Prabhupada, and we're indebted. So let us fall at the feet of Rupa Goswami. Here's the deity again of Radha Govinda at the Radha Kund. Same deity, different day, dressed a little differently. And again, same deity, dressed a little differently. Here's Govindaji in Jaipur. How many here have seen Govindaji in Jaipur? Okay. I hope you all get a chance to go someday. It's very, very wonderful. Not the whole. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds, several hundred people come every morning for Mangal Arti. And you have to get there early, because if you don't get there early, you're way in the back. But if you get there early, you're right in the front. It's worth getting there early. And then there's different groups of people. Some sing this song in their community, and some sing that song, and they're singing and music, and it's like really a concert going on, and very joyful. And everyone, it's wide open. There's not like you have to stand it. Everyone can see the way the deity is making themselves available to the audience, to the attendees. a little history about finding the deity, and I think we'll be finished. Rupa Goswami was given these two principal services: write books, establish the lost places of Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan. So one of those assignments included finding the deities. He found the deities were found, not exactly that he found them, but they were identified. Gopinath, Madan Mohan, but Govindaji was missing. So he searched everywhere. He read the texts. He asked Brahmins. He did everything. He knew. He prayed. Couldn't find Govindaji. So one day he was by the side of the river Jamuna, feeling very sad. I failed Lord Chaitanya. I haven't fulfilled his instruction. And as he was sitting there in that mood, a young village boy came and asked him, why you look so sad? He told them why. Just revealed his heart. And the boy said, well, I know where Govindaji is. Come, I'll take you there. And he started describing, and off they went. He's up on this hill. And every evening, around milking time, one cow comes and just deposits all of her milk on the same spot every day. It's because Govindaji is down below. She's doing Abhishek. And he took him to the spot, and sure enough, there was moist. And he said, you get some local people, and they'll help you excavate. Be very careful. He's a large deity, and I have to go now. And off he went. So sure enough, next day, some people were more than willing to help Rupa find the deity, and they started digging, and very large deity. And so the deity was installed, big Abhishek and offerings, etc., etc. There was no temple. It was just up on a hill. So a little grass hut was made, and they began worshipping. And after some time, on the right side you see Radharani. There was no Radharani by the side of Govinda. So we mentioned yesterday there was a plan to have a deity by the side of Madan Mohan and a deity by the side of Govindaji. So the son of King Prataparudra made the arrangement to send two Radharanis. But the evening before the big festival installation, the pujari of Madan Mohan, who was to do the installation, had a dream, and in the dream, one of the Radharani said, I'm not Radharani, I'm Alita. I belong by the side of Madan Mohan, so please place me there. So that's what they did. So here's Madan Mohan with Radha and Lalita, and Govindaji without Radha. And there's different versions, but the simplest version is the king of Orissa had a dream in which one of the deities in the Jagannath temple that had previously been worshipped by a lover of Radharani, but a previous king, when that Brahmin died, he had no sons, so the king attended his funeral. He's a celebrated man, and he brought the deity of Radharani back to place Radharani in the Jagannath temple. And over the course of time, Radharani became Lakshmi. But she wasn't Lakshmi, she was Radharani. So Radharani appeared in the dream of the king, that present king, and said, I'm not Lakshmi, I'm Radharani. I want to be by the side of Govindaji. You make the arrangement. And so he did. Big elephant procession all the way from Puri to Vrindavan. And Radharani was placed by his side. And you notice down by the right side of Govindaji, or to our left, there's a very small Krishna deity. The story behind that small Krishna deity was when Govindaji was found, Rupa Goswami wrote a letter to Lord Chaitanya saying, Haribol, we found Govindaji. And he was very, very, oh, Rupa Goswami, you've fulfilled all my desires. And Kashishwara Pandit was with him, and he said, you go help Rupa Goswami maintain the worship of Govindaji nicely. And Kashishwara Pandit looked very sad because he didn't want to leave Lord Chaitanya. He didn't want to say no, but he didn't want to say yes. So Lord Chaitanya could understand his mood and said, I'll make this arrangement. This deity of Krishna, we'll call him Gaura Govinda. And when you're worshipping this deity, you'll see me. And so Kashishwara Pandit followed Lord Chaitanya's instructions. Gaura Govinda was placed by the side of Govindaji. He spent his whole life worshipping Govindaji and Gaura Govinda. And his Samadhi is across the street in the whole Samadhi area near the Govindaji temple. And of course, after some time, Govindaji and many of the deities of the Goswamis had to be taken to Jaipur for safety, so that's where they are today. And here's a close-up of the deities. Here's a close-up of the feet of Govindaji. Here's a close-up of the face of Govindaji. And a nice song about Rupa Goswami was written by the next in line, Narottam Das Thakur, a very celebrated song. Maybe some of you have heard it, maybe some of you have sung it. Shri Rupa Manjari Pada. Shri Rupa Manjari Pada. Very celebrated verse, very celebrated song. And that's it for this evening on the life of Rupa Goswami and his role in the teachings of Lord Chaitanya, making them available to us through disciplic succession, translated by many of the acharyas and commented upon by many acharyas. A very foundational person in upholding and distributing Lord Chaitanya's message, the purpose of his appearing in this world, making the understanding of Krishna's pastimes properly understood instead of otherwise, because there's lots of otherwise out there. And we're very fortunate to have received those teachings and be in a position where we can help others understand those teachings just by distributing Prabhupada's books. Okay, so let's see if there's some discussion. We have a lot of people here this evening. It's Friday night. I'm surprised that children haven't been more restless than they've been. There we go. Said the magic words. Any thoughts or comments? You have something back there? Okay.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the wonderful presentation on Rupa Goswami. Maharaj, I'm trying to understand the chronology of when Rupa Goswami was instructed by Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and when Sanatan Goswami was instructed. I remember yesterday you mentioned Sanatan Goswami was instructed for 2 months in Varanasi.
The chronology was first Rupa for 10 days, then Sanatan Goswami for 2 months. That's the chronology.
But at the end of Rupa Goswami's instructions, he went back to Jagannath Puri.
At the end of Rupa Goswami's instructions, he went to Vrindavan, and he stayed for a month, and then he went to Puri, where he stayed with Lord Chaitanya for 10 months. Then when Lord Chaitanya sent him back to Vrindavan, he said, you can now send your brother to come see me in Puri. But when Rupa got back to Vrindavan, Sanatan had already left. for Puri. Okay? That's the
Okay.
chronology.
Yeah. Thank you, Maharaj.
Yeah.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, thank you for the wonderful class. Um, one of the slide I remembered a particular thought. If you can share some more light on that.
Which?
Um, I was just picturizing everything. Jagannath, who is Krishna, remembering Radharani. In front of him, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is Krishna, in the mood of Radharani, remembering Krishna. And he's chanting a verse which is understood only by Rupa.
Well, you got it a little jumbled. You want me to go back to those slides?
No, I was just remembering like Jagannath ji is Krishna himself.
Yes.
He is in the mood of Srimati Radharani.
Who
That's
is?
right, Jagannath.
No.
No, I mean he's remembering Radharani. That's why his eyes are in ecstatic mood, right?
He's remembering Vrindavan. He's Krishna in the mood of remembering Vrindavan.
Okay.
Krishna in the mood of remembering Vrindavan.
Because in one of the pastime it was that when Rukmini was seeing the glories of Vrindavan and Radharani, at that time Krishna's eyes.
I don't know what books you're reading. In the text in Skanda Purana, there's a very detailed description of the carving of and the worship of Lord Jagannath.
Mhm.
And the situation is that Krishna and Balaram and Subhadra were in Dwaraka. The residents of Dwaraka wanted to know what is it that Krishna has such attraction for Vrindavan, and they didn't know. They wanted to know, and Rohini was asked, "Can you say?" Rohini, the mother of Balaram, she would, because she lived in Vrindavan.
Okay.
She said, "Well, I can do that, but you have to. If I start speaking about Vrindavan, Krishna's going to come, and he'll get all interrupted."
Yeah.
So Subhadra said, "No problem. I'll stand in the doorway. They won't enter." So she started speaking, and Krishna and Balaram came, and they were on either side, and their eyes got really big. And it was Rohini speaking about Krishna's activities in Vrindavan. Now, you heard it differently?
No, it's same as of now.
Okay, so now your question is...
So actually one of the Vrajvasi, when I met at that time, they said when Rohini was speaking about Vrindavan, at that time when she started speaking about Srimati Radharani, Krishna heard the name of Radha and he went into ecstasy.
Well, that's a different version than what the book says. I mean, you can hear...
Yeah.
That may be, a commentary or something, but that's not what the Skanda Purana says. She's describing Krishna's activities in Vrindavan.
Okay.
And Krishna has such attraction for Vrindavan. He came, and his eyes became big. Not specifically necessarily saying the word Radharani.
Okay. Okay.
Now, I could go back and look at the text, but I've read the text a number of times, and there's no specific mention like that.
Okay.
And maybe it's a commentary by
Some of the
Acharyas somewhere or
Acharyas,
something like that.
Yeah.
Maybe it's just local Brijbasi talk. I don't know.
Okay. So my point was that Jagannath ji is in the remembrance of Vrindavan. He is Krishna who is remembering Vrindavan and he is ecstatic.
Yes, he feeling separation.
Yeah. And at the same time, in front of Jagannath, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu in ecstasy of Radharani, he is feeling ecstatic and dancing.
Yes.
So both same personality is thinking about each other and feeling ecstatic at the very same time.
No problem.
No, it's not. I'm not saying it's a problem. I was
I'm
just
not saying that
contemplating
you're
on-
saying it's a problem. I'm just saying it's not a problem. So your question is, it's wonderful, huh?
Yeah.
That's what. It's not a question. You're
Yeah.
just saying, "Wow, isn't this wonderful?"
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. And that's one of the reasons why he stayed in Puri. It's the same mood. Yeah, we have a Puri resident that wants to say something. Or clarification. Can we have the microphone up front here?
Maharaj, this pastime of this Lord like Krishna and Balram listening to Rohini's description,
yeah.
is that in Skanda Purana or Garga Samhita?
I don't know if it's in Garga Samhita. I don't know. Maybe or may not be. I don't know. I know that where it is. Okay? Because it's a whole, like King Indradumna and the whole thing. It's the carving of the deity.
Yeah, that part is there. This part was in Garga Samhita.
Maybe it is. Maybe it is. I can look. I have a copy. I can look. I don't know. Yes.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
You got to speak into the microphone.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
You have to turn it on too. There we go. It's high technology. You have to turn that little button.
Thank you, Maharaj. It's a wonderful session. And in this, whatever that sloka, like we need to hear, we need to sort, while we are chanting, we need to hear with mouth and we need to hear 1,000 times with ear and we need to with heart. So my question is more related to the chanting and all. So whenever we are concentrating more on listening, so mind is more active, so it is more consciousness is not giving that rasamrita, maybe for now. So maybe my question is more related.
Your question has me really confused, but the answer, the verse is really simple.
I understood the verse,
Oh, good.
Maharaj, but my question is more on the chanting. Normally I do. So if we are more consciousness on our chanting and more on listening on the only name, I mean Hare Krishna, then we are not feeling that much rasamrita. But if we are remembering and if we are going to heart, it's not too much concentrate, then we are getting that. So what is the best way to improve our things?
Follow Rupa Goswami.
Means